In 2022, excessive litigation drained an estimated $529 billion from the U.S. economy, costing $4,207 per U.S. household. Every day, Americans are paying the price.
Congressman Collins is now calling on the Trump administration to right this wrong, as the president knows all too well about being the target of these so-called ambulance chasers who've stopped at nothing to exploit the president's wealth and business empire over the years.
We have an epidemic in this country where, under the guise of mercy, what we're doing is we're enrolling people. We're not checking who's eligible. Medicaid now has more people that are above the poverty line on that program than below the poverty line. It's the first time, if you check the numbers the last couple of years, Paragon puts out a chart on this.
That is unacceptable. A basic level of fairness, an obvious need to reimburse, and it has to come, or should come, from the federal government. And so we will continue to push that. And I'm grateful that my colleagues in the state legislature and the state Senate are trying to pick up the slack for the failure of the Republicans in Congress.
This shows the complete disregard of the Trump administration to any kind of due process. This is an individual who had not been convicted of any crime, and before the person is separated from his family, from his wife and kids, and deported to El Salvador, he deserves due process. The administration should immediately bring him back home and make sure that he has due process.
Garcia's attorney just giving this statement to Fox ahead of a hearing on Friday, saying we are requesting that the judge order the government to do what it should have already done immediately upon realizing its mistake, ask El Salvador to give him back to us. But the White House says Garcia doesn't belong here.
He is an illegal alien.
I think it's worth underscoring the human consequences that my friend just kind of brushed right past, because if it takes 3 years for that circuit split to get to the Supreme Court, you're going to have 3 years where in large parts of the country, children born to undocumented parents will not be citizens. Some of those children could be subject to removal by the United States on the ground that they are not citizens. It is not possible for the federal courts to order those folks to be brought back.
We were here on the day that the Secretary of Treasury came in and told us that we were in a position where we had to act very quickly. We might have a worldwide depression. And I have come to believe over my career in life that experience is the very best teacher, and the worst experience teaches us the best lessons.
But the way we operate in Washington is from the Fred Flintstone era. And this bill would allow President Trump to do what he was elected to do, what he was given a mandate to do, and that's to reform the federal government and to help DOGE implement cost-saving measures, because this is about the taxpayer who's taken it on the chin because our federal government continues to operate on a $2 trillion annual deficit. This will make government more efficient. And
President Trump is allowing Elon Musk and the DOGE team to go through the checkbook of the American taxpayer and find waste, fraud, and abuse. God always asks us to be light in this world. Well, when there's problems, you need to shine a light on the problem, and that's what the DOGE team is doing.
I believe it actually goes beyond World War I. And the so-called Liberation Day, the only thing that is liberating is this administration's liberating Americans from their savings because the market's down. They're liberating businesses from their supply chains because of so much disruption. And they're liberating consumers from their hard-earned money because this is going to translate into increased costs.
And under President Joe Biden, we've seen the largest trade deficit in our history. And so we're trying to reverse course. Supply chains are important. Manufacturing base is important. Jobs in the economy are important. Let's return those back to the United States and do them right here.
Well, we know the auto industry is large throughout your state, and there's a 25% tariff now on all foreign-made auto going in.
And I'm quoting, while home building is inherently domestic, builders rely on components produced abroad, with Canada and Mexico representing nearly 25% of building materials imports. Imposing additional tariffs on these imports will lead to higher material costs, which will ultimately be passed on to home buyers in the form of increased housing prices, unquote. That's a pretty simple statement of supply and demand, is it not, Doctor? Yes, Senator. Right. So, when we hear the president, talking about beautiful tariffs, I think the American people need to understand what he's talking about, if applied in a broad-based way, mean higher housing costs. Isn't that right, Doctor?
It is hard to see how imposing higher costs on materials coming from outsiders is going to lower costs for housing. That is certainly true, Senator.
Well, let me give you the estimate from the chief economist over at the National Association of Home Builders, Robert Dietz. He estimates the tariffs, once fully phased in, will add anywhere from $7,500 to $10,000 to the cost of building the average American family home. Do you have?
According to an affidavit filed, that was filed related to the forced resignation, I guess we'll say, of their first acting commissioner, career civil servant Michelle King. Her deputy, Tiffany Flick, said that the reason things came to a head with the Doge team was that the person that was put there either by the current Social Security Commissioner or by Doge and Elon Musk, or perhaps it was a joint appointment, that he demanded that Michelle King give to the Doge team total, unfettered, broad access to all of our personal identifying information, and they even asked for the source codes, and they wanted it urgently. How urgently? Like yesterday, urgently. When Michelle King wouldn't give it to him, they said, then you're going to be replaced.
And just because they're a young veteran, they have all of a sudden been laid off. And so this mass firing, which, by the way, has been stopped for the time being by the courts, has a disproportionate impact on veterans. The very people that we should be lifting up and giving preference for federal jobs are getting disproportionately fired by this policy.
So my dad used to say to me, boy, don't walk around this house like you hit a triple. You were born on third base. My dad would say things to me like, boy, don't sit at this table and not realize that you drink deeply from wells of freedom and liberty that you did not dig. You eat from banquet tables of blessings prepared for you by your ancestors. You must metabolize those blessings, not so that you could pay your ancestors back, but that you could pay it forward.